Good morning. Good morning. We're going to get started. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I wanted to get the meeting going for our regular mayor-council breakfast. Chairman, as you know, we've discussed several items that we want to present, and they include an update on a piece of legislation that we've moved to the council, our plans for 2017 for the summer, and DPR will present our Safer Stronger package. We've also invited Brent Miner, who is an organizer for Washington, D.C.'s Gay Games bid, to give us an update. And Attorney General Karl Racine will provide a litigation update. Before we get started, however, I wanted to turn to you for any comments you have on behalf of the entire council.
Thank you and good morning. I don't have any opening remarks, so why don't we just get to the agenda?
Okay, sounds like a plan. I'm going to ask Michelle Garcia, who is our Director of the Office of Victim Services and Justice Grants, to provide an overview of SAVRA 2017, and then we will be available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor. Good morning, members of the council. It's a pleasure to have an opportunity to talk with you this morning about the Sexual Assault Victims' Rights Amendment Act of 2017, particularly given that April's National Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's very timely. As you may be aware, SAVRA 2017, as we're calling it, builds on the momentum for sexual assault reform that began in the district back in 2013 and was first codified with the Sexual Assault Victims' Rights Act of 2014. There were several key provisions to this piece of legislation, including, for the first time, providing the right to an advocate for victims during the same process, providing victims with the right to information about their rape kits, and also requiring the Department of Forensic Sciences to process those kits within 90 days, providing sexual assault victims with information from MPD so that when MPD has contact with a suspect, they're made aware so that they can better safety plan, and also codifying the sexual assault response team to continually monitor and review our progress in the district and address any problems. Two significant pieces of that legislation that inform SAVRA 2017 were the establishment of the Sexual Assault Victims' Rights Task Force. The task force had 4 specific charges: to develop a system by which victims and survivors could submit complaints and positive feedback and allow a process for continuous review and response; to look if there was a need existing for more sexual assault victim advocates, to assess whether a need existed to expand the right to an advocate outside of the same process, and then also to assess whether a need existed to expand the right to an advocate to a juvenile sexual assault victim. The legislation in 2014 also called for the hiring of an independent consultant to assess and review the law enforcement's response and also implementation of the 2014 Act. Many of you are familiar with Elizabeth Olds, who is the independent consultant that was hired. The task force first met in October of 2014. They met for over a year and issued their report in January of last year. The task force was statutorily comprised of multidisciplinary professionals as well as subject matter experts. They took the charge that the statute provided with them and looked at national best practices, and the recommendations from the task force are based on that review, those discussions, and how we can enhance the district's response. Elizabeth Olds, the independent consultant, also issued a number of reports. Those included looking at MPD's implementation of SAVRA 2014, looking at the sexual assault response team and the system for care for sexual assault victims and survivors in the district, doing an audit of the physical evidence recovery kits and how they're processed at the Department for Forensic Sciences, looking at prosecution data for sexual assault cases, and then also looking at how SAVRA impacted youth victims. SAVRA 2017 is made up from both the recommendations of the task force, the independent consultant reports, and one additional piece of federal legislation, the Federal Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights, which President Obama signed into law in January of this year. There's multiple provisions to SAVRA 2017, and so I will go through these briefly. First, it establishes the right to have a certified community-based victim advocate during law enforcement and prosecutorial interviews. So this extends it outside of that immediate crisis intervention, same process to any police interview and prosecutorial interview. It provides a right to confidentiality for the communications between advocates and victim survivors, which is really critical because we know that when victims feel that they can talk confidentially, they're more likely to come forward and get help. It requires prosecutors to provide a reason for a decision not to prosecute. This is a practice that the U.S. Attorney's Office is already engaging in with victims and survivors, so it just codifies that practice. It makes it illegal to remove someone's clothing without their consent. This was a violation that was just an oversight in the existing sexual assault law and really became an issue for the task force as they were hearing from victims and survivors, particularly of drug and alcohol facilitated sexual assault, who would often wake up, their clothing had been removed, they believed they had been violated. A suspect might admit to removing their clothing, but no further violation, and nothing could be done. That suspect could not be held accountable, so it closes that gap. It amends the definition of a sexual assault victim to include anyone who's age 12 or older. The current definition of a sexual assault victim is someone who's 18 and over, so this would extend all the rights for a sexual assault victim to anyone 12 and over and ensure that that victim and their family have those rights codified as well. Mandates that all points of entry into the system, so whether this is through MPD, through a hospital, through an advocacy organization, through a prosecutor's office, that there's a standard brochure every victim survivor is given so that there's consistent information provided to victim survivors throughout our system of response. It amends the limitations on which a sexual assault victim advocate is able to disclose a confidential communication. In practice, what this does is for sexual assault victim advocates only, it exempts them from the mandated reporting requirement in cases that CFSA would screen out anyway. So cases in which a sexual assault is committed by a peer, by a stranger, by an adult that does not have a significant relationship with that youth. So these would be cases that even if they are reported to CFSA, CFSA screens out as not being within their purview. So it exempts advocates from having to make that report. It also allows for crime victims who are dependents on someone else's insurance to apply for victim compensation without first having to bill their insurance. So crime victims' compensation is often thought of as a resource of last resort, and they require that someone bill their own insurance first for any services. This would exempt individuals, victims who are covered on someone else's insurance. So practically where we see this applying are for young adults who currently under the Affordable Care Act can stay on a parent's insurance up until their mid to late 20s. They can access crime victims' compensation without having charges show up on their parent's insurance. It clarifies the timeline for the Department of Forensic Sciences processing of the physical evidence recovery kits. As I mentioned, the 2014 statute included a provision that all kits had to be processed within 90 days, which DFS largely is absolutely adhering to. The one challenge they're running into is when their kits are involved in consumption litigation, which is delaying the processing of the kits, and so it's just creating a separate timeline when kits are involved in consumption litigation so that they still can maintain the 90-day requirement for all those other kits, which they're doing, and they don't end up looking negative for cases that are not in their control. Provides for the preservation of kits for the maximum applicable statute of limitations. So this way, kits are not being destroyed prior to the statute of limitations expiring. This provision comes directly out of the federal sexual assault victim rights bill. So we took that from the federal statute. The intent was in that statute that states would copy that, and we believe that was a really good provision. It provides for mandatory data sharing amongst the members of the SART. For the SART to be functional, it's really critical that all the parties that come together share data so that we can assess where there's opportunities to enhance our responses. As the 2014 bill required, it establishes a feedback review committee to receive and investigate all complaints and comments from victims and survivors. And it also requires the SART to issue an annual report to the mayor and council on the progress in the district and the activities of the SART each year. So as you can see, there's numerous provisions in there. I will say the task force in their time looked at national best practices. There were conversations with many other jurisdictions and analysis of what other states are doing and had been doing for quite some time. These recommendations reflect both national best practices and opportunities where we can really enhance our response to victims and survivors in the District of Columbia. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
I have a question. First of all, thank you very much for your extraordinary work and really ascertaining what the best practices are throughout the country. Question as to the status of the rape kits in the District of Columbia and other jurisdictions. There have been backlogs, and I'm interested in knowing whether there is a backlog in the District of Columbia and the extent of that backlog today.
So to our understanding, there is no backlog. DFS actually processes all the sexual assault kits, and as I mentioned, almost all of them they're able to process within that 90-day window. Where they're running into challenges are those kits that are involved in the consumption litigation.
And your question was almost on that there was a backlog at DFS, and part of the investment that the mayor and the council made together in DFS allowed for essentially additional hiring and supplemental contractor support to do DNA testing that allowed them to eliminate the backlog and also get the time frame for processing to under 90 days for those kits that weren't involved in consumption litigation.
Excellent. And I know that the mayor and the council have fully supported DFS, and we've seen, really outstanding improvements, notwithstanding, of course, occasional mistakes that will occur, but Dr. Smith has certainly done a great job. I would add that we're entirely supportive of the legislation at OAG. We do have a couple of folks working on potential little amendments to it to perhaps maybe even strengthen some areas, and we'd love to collaborate with you and Mr. Donahue or whoever the appropriate people are on that. Thank you.
And we look forward to working with you.
As a clarification, but there's been a backlog with rape kits from the past.
That's
I mean,
what
the answer
Jenna
was that
just said.
DFS is keeping current, but before DFS was created, there was a backlog, was there not? And that hasn't been eliminated, has it?
I mean, I understand that DFS has eliminated the backlog
Yes.
that existed. That had dated back many years.
Decades.
It may date back decades, but it dated back many years.
And your impression is that that's been eliminated?
Yes.
Everything's been tested. Charles, did you have a question?
I just wanted to quickly thank you, Ms. Mayor, and to the team for working with the advocates and the task force to move this legislation forward and introduce it. I think that whether we call it SARVA 2.0 or SARVA 2017 doesn't matter. I think it's a very strong response to a lot of great work by the advocates and my leaders in this community to help think through the next steps of this. For my colleagues, what we'll do on the committee side is we haven't scheduled a date yet, but we're looking for late May or early July, but my goal is to try to have a hearing on this bill before recess so that we can then try to move our next steps forward and have this bill, and if there are any changes, there's some debate around some of it, but be able to hold a hearing, have that conversation, and be able to move it forward to the full council.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for your leadership on this issue, and Ms. Garcia for your work on this. Two questions. The first one is a quick one. One of the things you mentioned is that we'd amend the definition of a sexual assault victim to include any person under age 12 or older. Why not? What's the difference between someone age 12 and older? What would the assault be for someone younger than 12?
Right now, the way the statute defines a sexual assault victim, it's anyone who experiences a sex crime as defined in statute who's age 18 or over. So anyone under 18 who experiences a sexual assault is still a victim in the sense that they've been victimized, but they're not afforded the same rights that are codified into the law. What this would do is it would extend those rights down to victims age 12 and over. And I know that this was an issue that the task force looked at other states and their practices, and this was the age that they decided, in part because it mirrors some of the other rights afforded to teenagers already in the district. So for instance, someone 12 and over can go and get a civil protection order on their own. Someone who's 13 and over has a right to all reproductive health services on their own. So I think they looked at that age both as a best practice across the country as well as mirroring other rights that are codified for teenagers in the district.
And Councilmember, what it was basically saying is that at 12 or over, you can access these things independent of a parent or guardian.
That's right. Okay. Thank you. And my other question, who are the members of the SART?
So the SART is statutorily defined. It includes the Metropolitan Police Department, it includes prosecutors, it includes the DC Forensic Nurse Examiners, it includes advocacy organizations, and I would have to get the statute in front of me to tell you who else might be in there, but I'm happy to provide that information.
I appreciate it. Is Safe Shores or any organization that provides the same types of services to child victims a member of the SART?
So Safe Shores is not a member of the SART, but there are other organizations that do provide services to youth that are members of the SART.
Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to follow up on Councilmember White's question and wonder why we are not also including everyone, irrespective of age, because every now and then we hear of situations where a 6-year-old or even a baby infant has been abused. So
Councilmember,
that's a question I would have.
So just to be clear, that the definitions refer to the services that will be available to a victim. A child below who's less than 12 years old would certainly have services provided, but they would be going through some kind of guardian, whether it's CFSA would then take the lead in that case, or another agency in making sure that that child receives services.
Mm-hmm. So then should that be a part of the report? I mean, should we discuss that and include that? Because it is a foregone fact that does occur in modern society.
And minors who are under 12 who are sexually assaulted in the district, there's a very robust response for those victims. There's a multidisciplinary team comprised of Safe Shores, of Metropolitan Police Department, Child and Family Services Agency, as well as the prosecutor's office, to ensure that both services are rendered to those minors and their families, and also that offenders are held accountable. For the teenage victims, what we're seeing is that often teenagers are not accessing services because of concerns about either becoming system involved or about being able to exercise their rights without parental consent. And so what this does is it affords those same rights to teenagers independent of a parent or guardian.
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
I think I saw another hand up. Maybe not. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, and our next item is a report on summer plans from the Department of Parks and Rec.
Thank you and good morning, Madam Mayor, senior staff, and Mr. Chairman and members of the council. I would like to give you an update of DPR summer preparations for summer 2017. But before I do that, I would like to highlight a few of our accomplishments last summer. I'm pleased to say that DPR had an overall customer satisfaction rate of 93% last summer. We increased our summer camp attendance by 21% last year by adding additional slots. And I would like to thank our partners at DCPS for allowing us to use Brooklyn Middle School to increase our capacity last summer. And this summer, we'll not only be in Brooklyn Middle School, we'll also be in Lafayette and Stoddard, which helps us meet the demand of the folks who want to attend DPR's camps. We had a record-breaking year for outdoor swimming pool attendance. We had over 200,000 visits to our 19 outdoor pools between Memorial Day and Labor Day without any significant incidents. So I'm very pleased to be able to share that with you this morning. We also won a couple of awards. DC was named the most fit city, the 6th top swim city, third best park city, and a playful city from various national organizations. And one thing that we have a new focus on is our teenagers. When people think DPR in the summer, a lot of people think about the camps. But we have a very big focus on our teenagers now, and the best thing for a teenager in the summer is to have a job. And working closely through the SYEP program, we hosted approximately 1,400 teenagers at DPR in the summer of 2016, and we're looking to host about the same this summer. So that's 1,400 teenagers in the city that will have a job with DPR. So high level, I'm going to talk to you about camp registration, our hiring process, our outdoor pool openings, and the summer kickoff, and our signature event schedule for this summer. So DPR starts our summer preparations in November. And this year, our camp registration started on February 27th and will remain open until all our camps are filled. As you can see, that we're at about 89% full. The remaining 5% is our therapeutic and tennis camps, where there need to be some assessments for those campers, and the rest are rec camps, which we normally fill up a week before camp begins. We'll have 4 sessions this year, an extended week, the weeks of August 14th through the 18th. We have 105 camp offerings, up from 90 in FY15 for ages 3 to 13. This is one slide that tells a very good story. DPR uses data analytics to make informed decisions. This slide is a great example of how using data to make strategic marketing decisions for our campus. As you can see in FY15, when we started camp registration, by week 2 we had 1,949 campers enrolled. Whereas this year in 2017, by week 2, we had 5,430 campers enrolled. So this is how we know more about who's enrolling in our camps, we know where they live, and more importantly, we know who's not enrolling. And those are the markets that we are targeting to enroll in our camps and other programmatic offerings. So every year, DPR essentially doubles its staff. We hire 533 seasonal positions, 307 are for camp operations, and 231 folks for aquatics operations. Now, by a show of hands, did you know that you can make $10,000 over the summer working at DPR?
No.
Well, you can. So if you know a youngster that's coming home from college, if you know someone who hasn't signed up for a job yet, tell them to be a lifeguard with DPR. We will train them for free. DC residents, we will train DC residents for free to become lifeguards. Now, I have 174 slots for lifeguards. About 140 of those are filled. We have 2 more classes, so they better sign up fast if they want to make that $10,000. All right. And I'm pretty sure, hopefully you guys have seen this ad on the buses and on social media and other places like that. So we're aggressively looking for lifeguards that will make sure that we're safe this summer in our aquatic facilities. So our outdoor pools will open on May 27th, and here are the proposed hours for those swimming pools. The only change that I do have on this slide is that we will only have 18 outdoor pools open this summer. East Potomac will not open this summer for safety reasons, and that it's about to go under construction. Camps will begin on Monday 19th. That is essentially the Monday after school closes for the summer. And we will go, again, 2 4-week sessions through August 11th. And then we have an extended session from the 14th through the 18th. Currently, we are in progress for site readiness, meaning we're delivering the supplies and materials for our campers. Our procurements are in progress. And DGS is doing a yeoman's job making sure that our buildings are safe and clean for our campers when camp begins this summer. And here are our signature events. We stay busy at DPR. So our events started on March 20th, and they go all the way until the beginning of the new fiscal year. I've seen many of you at some of these events, and I invite you to attend as many as you can for the summer. So please be sure to share these events with your constituents. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have.
Councilmember Nadeau?
Not really. I'll just speak up and towards the microphone. Director, thank you so much for this presentation. You know that I spend a lot of time talking with you about the aquatics program.
Yes.
And I thank you for all your hard work on that. Could you share with us the timeline for the construction at East Potomac and when that'll be reopened?
So East Potomac is slated to go into construction this summer. We're in the permitting process now, so the construction will be approximately 1 year from the day they break ground on it.
Great. And
so we're looking maybe the summer, late 2018 when it will be open.
I'll be there.
And for folks that are wondering, we're looking to heat the pool at Banneker because we have a lot of triathletes and athletes that use East Potomac up through October to train for triathlon. So we're looking to heat Banneker so they'll still have somewhere to go.
That's great news.
While East Potomac is down.
Thank you so much for that. As you know, the triathletes have somehow found me and always ask me about all the aquatics programs. So I thank you for that. And also wanted to ask, is there a new aquatics director? Or what's the progress there?
We will be recruiting for the new aquatics director shortly.
Excellent.
Right now, James Washington is our interim aquatics director.
Fantastic. And I want to thank you and your team for all your help with my Ward 1 day at Banneker Pool last summer. We'll do it again this year, and I think it'll be just as much fun. So.
It's our pleasure.
Thanks a lot.
Councilmember Che?
Good morning, Director, and everyone. I just want to ask you to please remind me, because I seem to forget every year, that additional week that you have after the camps are over. I'm concerned about those children who rely on DPR facilities to get their lunches and food. Does that carry them right up to school? Because I wouldn't want a gap there.
So we'll still be serving these free summer meals all the way up to the beginning of school. So that will not stop.
Okay, so you'll have the full complement of meals available for the children who need them, right?
That's correct, and anyone else who needs them. So
right.
For children and anyone else in the community who needs that summer meal, that will be available.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Allen?
Thank you. Thank you, Director. We've talked about this before, and I'm very glad that we are going to have the 11 a.m. Start time. I hear from families nonstop about when we open at 12, we're heading straight into nap time for little kids. So having that extra hour at the beginning allows our families to get out to our pools a lot more. What's the reason that, and so that's June 15th forward, if I'm reading this correctly, that's when we'll have the 11 a.m. piece. But so from May 27th to June 15th, we only start at 12. Is that right?
So beginning on Memorial Day weekend through June 15th, the outdoor swimming pools are only open on the weekends. And then we go into full operations on June 15th.
But the outdoor pools on the weekends are opening at 12 or 11?
Noon. Noon to 6 on the weekends. We open from 11 to 8 during the week.
And what would it take for Saturdays to be 11 a.m.?
We're looking into that. Okay.
I think my assumption is that if we had just a consistent time, the pools just open at 11, both the weekdays and the weekends, it would just be probably easier for families to plan around. But I think they're going to have the same needs on a Friday as they do on a Saturday. So if there's any way to have that 11 a.m., I think would be great. But I'm very glad that last year I think was the first year we did 11 a.m.
That's correct.
And so I'm glad to see that continue.
Yes.
Very much. Second question I had was related to in what way, can you just spend a second talking about, have you used, as you look at the programming for the different summer activities, as we've tried to focus a lot of summer energy around public safety and kind of targeted PSAs where we've seen either violence or public safety challenges. Can you talk a little about how you've tried to either tailor or work on programming activities in some of our targeted PSAs?
Yes, we have. In some of those targeted PSAs, that's where we have very robust summer basketball leagues. We've also had pool parties in targeted PSAs to kind of curb some of the activities that we don't want to see at night. And so they've been very successful. We have we have about 3 more basketball leagues coming online this summer to help keep kids active at night. So that's been working very well the previous summers, and we look forward to that working well this summer as well.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other council members? Councilmember McDuffie.
This is along those lines. In terms of the areas where there are hot spots or whatever you all frame them, I know Kevin, the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety and Justice, as well as Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services, have been coordinating around some of the public safety activities during the summer. Is there every area where there is a target of resources for public safety? If there's a rec center in that area, does that open late during the week and weekends?
So we're still closing at 9 p.m. during the week and 4 p.m. on Saturday. But when we have the basketball leagues, on the basketball leagues, we take it outside. Okay. And so essentially we are open late. Now some of the leagues don't end till midnight. And another thing that we work very hard on, we've had a series of teen forums, and we've heard from our teenagers who are between 14 and 18, and they're looking for something to do as well. And so we hosted our first successful teen night out at the Berry Farm Recreation Center last month, and we had over 200 teens show up and have a great time. We partnered with the radio station to do that, and the next teen night out is Friday night at the Trinidad Recreation Center.
Yeah, I saw that on the well, actually wasn't on there, but I heard about it.
Yes.
But and I appreciate those, and I've been to some of those activities, and they've been very well attended and very well organized. The basketball tournaments as well. My only concern, and one of the things that I'd love for you all to think about, is particularly where there is a target for resources that you all are directing for public safety reasons, that there'd be some thought to having the recreation centers, if there is one, in the target area or close to the target area, that it stay open late on Saturdays and Sundays. I don't even think, are they? Yeah, I mean, kids are still going to be out, particularly during the summer months.
That's correct.
They're going to be out, they're going to be hanging out, and I think giving them some activities and programming later on into the evening on Saturdays and Sundays would be useful to keep them in structured activities.
And I remember us having that conversation during the performance oversight hearing about the hours, and that's something that we have been looking into.
Mr. Chairman.
Councilmember White, then.
Director, thank you for everything that you're doing. A couple of questions. You mentioned at the outset that you live in this city, but I have to imagine that there are a lot of folks who use our pools early in the morning.
They were open. Is that something that you looked at? Have you surveyed what the potential use would be?
Now, I will say that some of our outdoor swimming pools, we do open early for lap swim, so that is happening.
Okay.
But I think, to the council member's point, opening a little early for families to come in and enjoy those facilities is something that we need to look into. So I know at Banneker, at East Potomac, last year when it was open, we opened at 6 very early for lap swim.
Okay.
But we need to look at for our families as well.
Perfect. Also, somewhat along those lines, there are an increasing number of infants and toddlers here in the district. Do we provide classes for, like swim classes for infants?
We do, parent and child class, and that starts at 18 months.
Perfect. Thank you.
Councilmember Gray.
Keith, of the activities, I mean, historically we've had late evening and nighttime activities in basketball. That's fairly traditional in the city and elsewhere. But have you expanded the activities beyond basketball? Because there's so many young people especially who would be into other kinds of activities for whom this would be a good engagement to keep them out of other.
Yes, we have, and that's where our teen night out came from. For the kids who may not be inclined to play basketball, we're now providing other activities and avenues for them to be productive during the summer at night. So that's where the teen night out came from, and we're looking to expand that as well.
What about softball, baseball? You know, things that would be, because we have so many fields with lights now.
That's
that
correct.
Would capture the interest of so many young people who may not necessarily be good at or attracted to basketball.
That's a very good suggestion, and we'll look into perhaps adding softball or baseball to our offerings in addition to the basketball leagues.
So there's nothing going on for this summer that you know of at this stage?
Not in terms of softball or baseball.
Okay. One last question, looking at the number of positions, which is great, 533 seasonal positions.
That's correct.
Is it every one of those persons hired, are they DC residents?
The majority of them are. Not 100%, but it's in the neighborhood of 80%.
Okay, is there any way to get to close to 100%, or is there a practical problem associated with
Well,
that?
that is our goal, to hire 100% DC residents, and we'll keep trying until we get there.
Is it because we don't have enough qualified people for some of these jobs? And I realize you can't open a pool without having qualified people there, but...
Right. So I won't say it's not because we don't have enough qualified folks. I think just in general that people... I have to look at exactly what the reasons that we don't have 100% DC residents there, but we do have a high percentage of our DC residents that do work in our summer seasonal slots. Like I said, it's above 80%, which I think is remarkable.
No, 80% is a good number. Can you get back to us, back to the chairman, mayor, and give us the data on beyond the 80% that live in the District of Columbia? Where do the others live? And, what are the factors that account for people outside the city being hired in these positions?
I will. And the only positions that we have in the summer that require a specific skill set is the lifeguard position. So I'll get back to you with those numbers, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
You can send it to me with copies to members, or to Councilmember Chase, since she's the oversight, with copies to members.
Certainly.
Thank you. Kyle?
Yes, Director Anderson, thank you very much for obviously your passion, your competence, and what you're trying to do at DPR. Not so long ago, as a young kid here, my sister and I literally spent our entire summers, 9 a.m. till dark, at DC rec centers throughout the city, learning how to compete, learning how to paint, learning how to play tennis, and learning how to shoot, not pass the basketball. So I appreciate what you do. I do have a few questions, though.
Yeah.
Number one, I'm interested whether you've mapped out the demographics in regards to who our campers are, for example, and where they're coming from, which wards, which PSAs. Are we reaching as deeply as we should be into our Latino, Hispanic community and the like? I guess that'd be my first question.
And the short answer is yes, we have, which has helped us with the marketing of our camps. We do know where our campers live. We do know their ethnicity. We do know their family income range. And so we've been very intentional to market to those populations that have historically not attended DPR camps. We know that the majority of our campers come from zip code 211. I need to know why I don't have more participation from 232. So we do have that level of information on our campers, and we started collecting that back in FY 2015, which has helped us make very intentional decisions about who we market to and where we put our resources in our camps.
Okay, and I would just ask that perhaps I can reach out to you directly and get that information, as we'd love to be able to help you garner interest in some of those other zip codes where there are no campers.
Absolutely.
Let me just also add that Director Anderson started out talking about how the Summer Youth Program is also a companion to everything that we do with summer camps. And again, this year, our Office of Latino Affairs will have a specific cohort where they are targeting and recruiting Latino teenagers to participate in the Summer Youth Program.
Awesome.
And making those connections with employers.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and appreciate the importance of that work. The other question I have is about the statistic about D.C. being the fittest city. I think that obviously that's spectacular. I think Minneapolis, for some reason, is out there as well. They have great parks, and that's a kind of a consistent metric that leads to cities being fit. My question is whether we've dug deeper into that to, again, focus on demographic information as to perhaps identifying aspects of our city that are not the most fit, and how we might go about really targeting and trying to educate people about the benefits of getting fit, eating fit, and doing what the mayor champions so much, which is walking stairs and everything else. Do you have data on that?
Yes, and we've worked with the Department of Health to understand where some of the challenges are. The mayor has a very robust Fit DC program, and we've walked many miles in many neighborhoods getting the message out to some of our residents that may not, where some of the challenges are in order to how to have a healthy lifestyle. So that information we do have, and we work with the Department of Health on understanding where some of the neighborhoods in the city where they have some, let's say, fit challenges are.
Sure.
And how to address those.
And may I access that data by reaching out to you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. And then my last question goes along the lines of Council Member Gray's question, which is, really using the attractiveness of parks, that people are going to be outside, to go even beyond athletics. I wonder whether we have a program that maybe not through you, but perhaps through other programs that are also educating kids on computer skills, code writing, other activities that are not sports related, but nonetheless present where young people are.
Yes, and we've been very intentional about having some of our camp offerings address just that. We have engineering camps, we have STEM camps, we have coding camps now for our youngsters because these are the things that they're interested in, and so we wanted to make sure that we provided that opportunity to enhance those skills over the summer with DPR.
All right, and that's another place I'd love to dig in and find out where those camps are to try to push the demand, the bodies over to those type of camps.
As a matter of fact, the extended camp that I spoke about from August 14th to 18th is a STEM camp.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Thanks again.
You're welcome, sir.
I think last year was the first year, maybe it was 2015, that DPR offered coding camps specifically for girls.
Awesome.
And there were just a number of camps where we see some specific demand, but we're also trying to drive more interest in those types of camps. But I have to commend DPR for the initiatives around teen nights. It sounds like a simple idea, but the truth is a lot of our young people, they're having teen nights somewhere.
Right.
They're already doing that. They're having teen nights. So we want them to have a teen night in a safe environment, a productive environment. And then when they're at our rec and they're with our recreation specialists, we can interest them in some of these other things. But I think kind of the start of it is to get, and they're actually coming. They're coming to these teen nights, and then we can lure them in that way with fun and food and music, and then make sure they're exposed to some of the other offerings.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, why don't we move on to the city games?
Sure, absolutely. So, Brent, if you can find a microphone, I want to invite you to the table. I think many of you have been following the Gay Games bid, and Brent can tell you more about the organizing committee and what they've done so far and what our expectations are for the next steps. Brent Miner.
Good morning, Madam Mayor, and good morning, Mr. Chairman, and all members of the City Council. It's good to see some of you who I've known for many years, and I'm excited to be here about the Gay Games. And you asked people to raise their hand. How many of you have heard of the Gay Games before? Oh my gosh, that is great. Well, goodbye. No, I'm just kidding. The Gay Games and the clicker. There it is. Oh, there we are. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and move that up. What are the Gay Games? That's kind of where we're going to start here. My name is Brent Miner, and I'm the Executive Director of Team DC. We are the association of the LGBTQ sports clubs in the Washington area. We represent 35 different clubs covering all manner of different sports with an estimated 7,000 participants in these teams. When you talk about DC being the fittest city, the LGBT community is right there helping to lead the way on that. We are a very active sports community here. We are anxious about bidding the Gay Games for a lot of reasons, but for some of you who don't know the background of this, the Gay Games began in 1982 by former Olympian Dr. Tom Waddell. It's held every 4 years. For shorthand purposes, you call it the Gay Olympics, although we can't use the word Olympics. The average number of Olympic participants, a lot of people don't know this, is about 10 to 11,000 in the Summer Games. The Gay Games, our estimate is between 12 and 15,000 participants. So the Gay Games would actually be larger in terms of participants than the Olympics. Now that's just to show you how big this event could be here in Washington. The Gay Games are governed by the Federation of Gay Games. That membership is comprised of 3 different parts: city teams like Team DC, Team San Francisco, Team Seattle, places like that. International governing bodies like the International Frontrunners, International Gay Bowling Organization, there is such a thing, and organizations like that throughout the world. This is a global organization. And 18 members of the board that I'm happy to say 3 are from DC. So we've been working on this. The Gay Games bid process, why don't you do it? There we go. Just to introduce Ryan Boss, who's the Executive Director of Capital Pride, member of our Executive Committee, and Sheila Alexander Reed, who is also on our Executive Committee and is the Director of the Mayor's Office on LGBTQ Affairs. And their office has been incredibly helpful to us in this process, as is Capital Pride. Can we go back one? To tell you, let me go to the next one. Okay, I think we missed one. No, go back. There we are. The Gay Games bid process. Here we are. We're in phase 3 right now. Phase 1, we created the bid, and that was submitted in November. Phase 2, we had a Q&A from the FGG members. It doesn't sound like much, but there were close to 700 questions submitted. So having to respond to that, it was quite a task. There were 8 cities that submitted bids. We made it into the finals. The other 2 cities in the finals are Hong Kong and Guadalajara. The 5 cities that did not make it were Austin, Dallas, Salt Lake City, Denver, and San Francisco. It should be noted that we are the only U.S. city that made it to the finals, which I think, there you go. So we are delighted for that. And phase 3 is now the next phase, which we're in right now. We're planning for site visits that will come up at the end of June. You'll hear more about that soon. And a community rally. Phase 4 will be a presentation that we will make to the entire Federation Board that will be held in Paris. And we are hoping that the mayor and maybe some from the City Council will help to lead that delegation to us. In Paris. That would be a great showing of support from this city. The Gay Games' importance to DC. This is more than just having a great time here in Washington. We have specifically designed this to help benefit the city. And I think I want to point some of these out to you. It's held during one of the lower occupancy weeks of the year. So it's a good time for us to host it here in Washington. Then estimated revenue, and the closest one we can relate this to is the Gay Games 9 that was held in Cleveland in 2014. Estimated revenue there was $52 million for the city. That was a study by Cleveland State University. Now I want to preface that by saying the Gay Games in Cleveland was the lowest Gay Games since 1990 because, well, it was Cleveland. But not knocking my friends in Cleveland. No, well, this is very competitive. There were only about 6,000 participants. Paris is already on track to attract close to 15,000. And we generally tend to think that, sorry if anybody from Cleveland. Yeah. Sorry. It's nice knowing you. I can tell you more. The estimates, though, with Paris, I think we are more comparable to them in terms of the size of the city and things like that. But our estimates are well over $100 million that would be generated from the games coming here to Washington, and upwards of 100,000 total visitors over the next 5 years that would be part of this in some part during that week. This also strengthens the image of Washington as a LGBT leader in the world, a global leader. The Gay Games are international. Our goal is people from 100 different countries. So I think that helps to enhance our image as a true international destination. And I think that bears through, that helps to trickle down through other events that to help burnish that image for us. that highlights the city's ability to produce large-scale multi-sport events. This is, as you can tell by the numbers, this is a huge undertaking. And there are many other events similar to this. We think of the Olympics, but there are also many events like the Pan American Games, things like the Senior Olympics and the Special Olympics. These are also huge undertakings that this will demonstrate the capacity of this city to host an event this size. And it also helps to build a strong volunteer base for these kind of events. We anticipate we'll need 2,000 volunteers to help produce these games. Huge undertaking. What would Gay Games 11 in DC look like? 36 sports is the minimum. We will, once we get the games, we have the capacity to add more sports, which I suspect we probably will. The Roller Derby League is actively trying to get in, which I think we would want. There would be 2 large ceremonies. The opening is planned for DC United Stadium, the closing ceremony at the DC Armory. There are 8 cultural events that will be held between choral, band, film, theater, and spoken word. 2 conferences we're including in our presentation. Women's Sports Conference would be in 2020, and a pre-games conference, a 3-day conference in 2022, which would be the Inclusion Conference, and that also coincides with the 50th anniversary of Title IX, which for many people know was a landmark decision to help bring greater equality in sports, particularly for women. We estimate that 68% of all events would be held in D.C., 20% in Maryland, 12% in Virginia. Some of we will try at all times to bring events into D.C., and some of that will depend on the things are evolving all the time, improving, and to have that capacity. One of the reasons that we have to have some events in the other areas is because the size, number one, or 2, the requirements that the Federation of Gay Games has for that certain sport. So I can deal with any of those individually at the end if you have questions about that. The strategies of the bid for DC, in particular, I wanted to share with you, all the evening events, primarily the cultural ones, would be held in DC. And the general thinking is that people will want to stay in the places where they either have social events. So we anticipate that will help motivate people to want to stay in the district. We also want to keep people here for the entire week by having a very creative program. One of the things that we've learned talking to our partners is people may leave the Gay Games after their event is over. We want to keep them here for the entire time. Some of the ideas we have is an embassy open house on that Friday towards the end of the week, where people from around the world could go to visit their home embassy. I mean, how unique is that? What a great opportunity that is. And we're working with gays and lesbians and foreign affairs agencies. There's a group there that works with all the State Department, USAID, all those groups to help make that happen. We're adding a second choral concert. We're planning the Sing-Along Sound of Music on the Mall, which we want to go for the world record for the world's largest sing-along sound of music. Wouldn't that be fantastic? The closing ceremony, we're looking to turn that into a rock concert. Some of you might remember Equality Rocks. Do you remember that back in 2000 at RFK Stadium by the Human Rights Campaign, HRC? They helped produce that. Brought in a bunch of LGBT musicians, Melissa Etheridge and George Michael and people like that came and they were singing. So we want to create that rock concert at the closing ceremonies. And HRC is very interested in helping us to produce that. That would be a great opportunity for us. We also have created what we call a gold pass for events. This is kind of an upselling for tickets. A lot of times people will just want to go to the opening ceremonies and get a Metro Pass. The Metro Pass is included in the registration for the games. So, but buying the pass, you get all the events. So it might encourage people, well, I've already paid for the closing ceremonies. I'll just stay the extra couple of days. There you go. Yes, he's very excited. So, phase 3 here, as I said, is the site inspection team that will be here from June 26th through July 1st. This is a critical moment for us in this bid. They will visit every venue that we have listed in our bid book, and I have copies of the bid book to pass if you want to take a look at that, thumb through it. I should have done that earlier because it is a big book. they will go to visit every single site. And this is a group from around the world. There's somebody from Germany, another person from Chicago, another person from Australia, who will be coming in to do the assessment of all our venues. I suspect that we're going to do very well. Our venues that we have selected are tested, have the capacity that we need, so we feel very confident about that. The key events during that week is we'll have an executive committee meeting at Covington and Burling that morning. They are our legal counsel for this venture. Our community rally, which I want to invite everybody to, and you'll be getting a specific invitation to that. That's on that Wednesday, the 27th. The site is to be determined, but we're looking for a site, and we might need some help with that, between 1,000 and 2,000 people. So this is a large rally. We know our friends in Hong Kong have a very enthusiastic constituency. We need to match that as much as we can. We'll be working with Events DC, who we've been working with from day one on this event, a presentation there about some of the venues that we have, a multimedia presentation we have, and then a community leaders cookout, a very casual event. So that's their last event that they'll be going to here. We are the last stop. We're the last city. We want to end their whole visits on a nice, casual kind of cookout type event, and you also will be invited to that as well. Phase 4, the question and answer period continues through September. We will go to Paris in October, and we will make the presentation. The very next day they vote, and they will tell us who the winner is. It's a very quick process that happens. Our leadership team, and somehow this slide did not get completed, but I'm very pleased to say our honorary co-chairs on this, Paul Tagliabue, the former commissioner of the NFL, Eric Holder, the former Attorney General of the United States, and Billie Jean King, just a sports legend and a hero to the LGBT community. We are delighted to have their full support, and they have actually been fairly active in helping us move this along. I'm the chair of the committee. The co-chairs did not make it, and I apologize for that. Our 3 co-chairs are Lynn Brown. She's the publisher of the Washington Blade. Marvin Bowser, he's a former D.C. Arts Commissioner and a member of the D.C. Strokes rowing team. And Clark Ray, he's the Executive Director of the D.C. State Athletic Association. Our executive committee includes, of course, Sheila and Ryan, who are here with us. You can also see there the other folks there. I won't read their names. But I think when you look at that, what we really see is collaboration between our community, between the sports teams, our government agencies like the mayor's office, and our Events DC, Destination DC has been very involved with this, our Tourism Bureau, and our corporate partners, people like Edelman, Public Relations, Covington and Burling, Hargrove. We have just announced that Hilton has signed on as a sponsor of this, Miller Coors, Anheuser-Busch. A lot of people are now seeing that we have a very strong shot at these games, so they want to get on the winning team here. So I don't blame them. So that's our presentation. I know I kind of went through that kind of quickly. But the last thing here, important request. This is just, I hope you will, if you haven't already gone and liked and shared our Facebook page, please do so. It does matter that people that are talking about our bid online. And go on Twitter, tweet out about us, and just say, hey, I support the gay games coming here. We want you to come to the community rally. That's going to be for everybody. That's really key. Can't tell you how much that is. The cookout on the 29th, that's going to be kind of less chaotic, gives us a chance to talk one-on-one with the site inspectors. And then if you want to look at our bid and any questions about that, the website is there. And I brought my cards here because I want your staff to reach out to us. If they have questions, if they have ideas, we are glad for it. And I want to see if Sheila or Ryan what did I miss?
I'll jump in. I would just like to thank Brent for his hard work because he has been working very hard for the last year to get us to this point, and it's no small task to become one of the top 3 finalists. So that's I just want to give him a round of applause because he's worked really hard. And I also like to thank Director Anderson here because Parks and Recs has been very instrumental in helping us come up with venues. And as Brent said, we are really looking for community rally venue that's going to elevate DC to the next level, because we really need to impress these judges. So if you have any ideas, please reach out to Brent.
The only thing I'll echo is, again, just the rally, and we went through this process during the bid process that Cleveland won, so that I think is a little background in terms of Brent's response earlier. So the stressful moments are definitely in the midst, and the one thing that I remember going through the process the last time, and that we definitely need to make sure that we put a huge effort into it this time, is specifically with the rally and that site visit. Folks want to feel the community here in DC. Obviously, those outside of D.C. have a perception of D.C. as this federal city and don't have the opportunity to really experience the breadth of the community. So anything that we can do by having your participation and working out in your areas of the city to get those folks, to get our community out and present, can only help us to really show the true depth, diversity, and fabric of our community here.
Well, thank you, Anna. Thank you for that excellent presentation. And Chairman, we've had the opportunity to ask a lot of the questions of the committee, and I want to give the members of the council that opportunity.
Are there questions from members? Charles?
Thank you so much for this. Sorry, so you're looking for sites for June 27th? I got some great ideas in Ward 6.
We're good.
Beautiful spaces.
Let's go.
Yards Park, Canal Park, right along the river.
There is a home Nats game that night, so but we're looking at all those as well.
All right, I'd be happy to help.
Okay.
To what degree we're having a great conversation with Events DC around how we are trying to re-envision the use of some of the parking lots around RFK, separate from a decision of what the future use is of the site. But of the parking lots itself. And Events DC, I think, has done a great job of laying out a vision, in particular about creating green space and field space. And I saw that Eric Moses is part of your team, too. So could you just talk about, you got DC United, which obviously will be completed by then. Are there sites like the RFK parking lots that can be converted into green space and field space, other venues that you're seeing that you're kind of already anticipating being a part of your plan for the games and having them be successful in using these spaces?
In terms of ones that are not in our bid book, for instance, I think the biggest one would be that the Bridge Park that is going to be built and that connects to the Anacostia Fields, the soccer fields there. I think that's really exciting. That kind of came on after the bid was submitted, but we would have the capacity to move events as they come on. And for instance, we look at those fields as a real strong possibility. Access is, real key, but if once the Bridge Park comes on board, then that makes it a lot more accessible. So that would be one example. In terms of the fields around RFK, we do plan to have one of the cycling events at RFK if it was the way it is right now. It's called the Criterion, which is kind of like the requirement in figure skating. You ever see that, where they have to do the figure eight and all that stuff? That's like what it is for cycling, as I'm told. So that would be one use that we already do plan for that. I think this, one of the great things about the bid like this is it shows how much, kind of community this kind of brings up, and, it engages. How much economic development this brings by having these sports kind of things. So investment in recreational parks and services like that, it's a good investment because it does pay back in terms of a stronger community, greater engagement of people together. And I think that's one of the great things that we see about the gay games, because it's not just for gay people, it's for anybody. A good 15 to 20% of the people who participate are not even gay. They say, hey, I want to have a great time at a great event. So we think that a lot of this, sports helps to transcend, kind of barriers that, exist in our community. And, just because that's the way sports is. People, just want to get in and play. They don't really care about a lot of the barriers that we kind of, see on the outside. So does that answer your question? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll follow up with you on this.
I do want to follow up with you about, the venue sites.
Other questions from members? I have a question about financial support from the district government. Mm-hmm. What are you looking for?
We are hoping to get support of upwards of $2 million from the district to help put this event on. And we would be working through Events DC for this. One of our bigger challenges is with security, and that is going to have to be for any large event like this. That is why our request was much higher for this year, and it would have to. We would work with Events DC, and they've agreed to do this in terms of managing those funds and accessing the funds through them. But that would be the request.
So Events DC would be the financial source within the district government?
Correct.
Any money from Maryland or Virginia, since there'll be venues there?
We are going to go to them once we secure the bid and use that as leverage to either move the event if they don't support it. But we will look to get that. I've had long discussions with Jay Facette in Arlington. I know Arlington is on board in terms of this. We've talked to Montgomery County about their coming on board with their Parks and Recs department. So, frankly, their events are such a small footprint that it was hard to talk about that until we got the games with them. But we do anticipate doing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, listen, we're great.
Fantastic, Brent. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
We are excited. I'll send you notes. Please come to the rally. It'll be great.
Yes,
it will be
we'll get the
fun.
word out about the rally and
Thank you, Ryan and
some of the
Sheila.
new options as well. And now I think the Attorney General has a litigation update.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Appreciate the presentation. Try to be as brief as possible. Just really want to highlight 1, 2, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 cases real quick. Prior to getting into the cases, though, and sort of building on the victims' rights bill, I do want to give a report on a recent trip that I took along with the Illinois State Attorney General Lisa Madigan to the beautiful country of Kenya for a human trafficking and child sex trafficking conference. There was a lot of shared information around best practices, and I think that for us, I can bring back 4 ideas that the district may want to consider. First, the clear focus on education and training that is necessary in order to alert responsible adults and indeed young people to the signs that young people are being human trafficked. We've been blessed in being invited to go to several public schools in the district. Candidly, we'd like to have access to more. Would love to be able to partner with the executive on that to get into the other schools to help kids understand what the signs are that their friends may be being victimized. I can tell you that in every school we've been in, the reception of the young people is that they so desperately want to look out for their peers. And so clearly from that conference, it was established that peer-to-peer education on these issues works, should be invested in, and really should be done at scale. Additionally, training, particularly around hotel employees, as well as public school employees, again, on the signs of child sex trafficking is also incredibly helpful. To that end, you should know that we've certainly been in discussion with the teachers union as well as hotel unions and are scheduling training opportunities there to really educate their people on what the signs are of human and sex trafficking. Big point, education. Second, what the other countries are doing, I think, a little bit better than we may be doing here in the States, and particularly in the District of Columbia, is they're really seeking to clamp down on demand. It's the demand that really drives the business. And the business, I should note, is a $38 billion global business in human and sex trafficking. It's the second largest criminal enterprise, second only to the drug trade. And the sad fact is that it is growing at a rate where in the next 5 years it will surpass the drug trade. So it's a humongous problem worldwide. The demand's got to be stopped. That means more focus. Deputy Mayor Donahue and I look forward to working with you in getting our CJCC partners, the federal agencies in particular, NPD, U.S. Attorney's Office, to collaborate with us in trying to knock out the demand. And the demand, unfortunately, almost always we're talking about men who are, taking advantage of young people in sexual ways. There are ideas around the world as to how to stop the demand. Certainly enhancing law enforcement penalties is an idea. Public shaming of people. In other words, publishing pictures of individuals who have been convicted is a way to stem demand. And then lastly, and most interestingly to me, there are robust asset forfeiture procedures in play for individuals who have been convicted of child sex trafficking. And again, in those jurisdictions that are most effective, they absolutely target demand. So I look forward to working with Kevin in particular on that. I know he's committed in this area. So that's human trafficking and sex trafficking. As for the litigation report, just a few cases. You all know well that the Office of Attorney General, under a new division we've created, the Public Advocacy Division. Within that, there is a Housing and Economic Justice Unit led by a woman named Jane Lewis, where we're bringing in these slumlord cases. We, of course, have brought 2 cases against Sanford Capital. Those cases are moving apace in the Superior Court. There was a development in the last 2 weeks where Terrace Manor, LLC, an affiliate of the Sanford Company, sought to escape liability by claiming bankruptcy. Our lawyers are fighting zealously in the courts in that regard. I'm happy to report that the bankruptcy trustee agrees with our view that there is no way that LLC can escape liability for what we claim it's been doing, and that the bankruptcy courts will not be a haven for their wrongdoing. So excellent developments in those cases. We're before Judge John Mott in both cases, Terrace Manor and Congress Heights. I should note that just on Friday, or was it yesterday, we brought another action against an individual who we claim is a slumlord. You know, obviously they have the right to due process, so these are allegations right now, and it relates to our hood, Councilwoman Nadal, Columbia Heights, 2724 11th Street Northwest. That's one where we've worked together with your office, and we certainly appreciate your diligence on that. So that matter has been filed, and we look forward to prosecuting that. A couple of other matters. We are now in a significant wage theft litigation matter in the Superior Court. Looking forward to a decision in that case. We're pursuing that wage theft case pursuant to the old law. There's a new law now that allows the Office of Attorney General to investigate and bring suits without having to wait for the DOES folks to finish their process. The current case that I'm referring to is against a company called Dynamic Visions. There are 136 employees who we believe have not been properly paid. That case is being brought again pursuant to the old law where DOES first brought suit at OAH, and we're seeking to enforce the OAH judgment in Superior Court. 2 more cases. Collect Pros is a consumer protection action. The number 1 consumer protection complaint in the District of Columbia relates to individuals who are and companies who harass D.C. residents and claim that they owe money. Now, of course, there are some folks who owe money. They don't need to be harassed every day. And what's worse is that most people do not owe money, are harassed, and brought to court. Collect Pros was in the business of doing just that. Our consumer protection lawyers stepped in the way, and Collect Pros has agreed to forgive the over $219,000 in uncollected consumer debt that they were harassing D.C. residents about. So fantastic work on the part of our Consumer Protection Office. I'll note that that matter came to our attention as a result of one of our consumer protection lawyers going out to a ward community event and a resident just coming up and saying, hey, look, I'm really embarrassed to tell you this, but here's what's been going on. I'm not answering my phones. I'm not opening my mails. I'm really depressed. She came to our office and thankfully cooperated, and we were able to shut this operation down in the district. Lastly, and certainly we've been working very carefully and closely with Kenyon McDuffie on this matter, we filed suit on Friday against an outfit called Genosi. Genosi is an outfit that was trying to run something they call an apart hotel in D.C. without a hotel license. They called it an apart hotel. Apart. So like an apartment/hotel. Some of these units were in fact affordable housing buildings, and what they did was they marketed their apart hotels as hotels, And in fact, what we did was we heard from residents who said, hey, look, I think my building is running a hotel. There are strangers coming in here every night asking for the receptionist and asking me whether there's room service. And so we conducted an investigation and indeed brought suit. I want to make clear this is not a suit against Airbnb, although Genosi did in fact advertise its wares, if you will, on that network. So again, working closely with Kenyon McDuffie on that lawsuit. That's a brief report. I just want to let you know that we're active, we're engaged, and honestly, we have extremely passionate lawyers who are committed every day to doing the people's business. Happy to answer any questions you might have on any of those matters.
Vince?
Carl, you gave us a report at one of the meetings a couple of months ago. You talked about the Salazar case, I think it was, where the goalposts keep moving. And I'm curious as to whether you've made any progress in being able to get the goalposts in one place.
Yeah, we raised that. We talked about that case, and you corrected us. We indicated that the case had been filed sometime, I think, in the 90s. You corrected us and told us it had been filed in the 70s, and you, in fact, were correct.
That was Dixon.
Yeah.
Dixon.
Okay, that was Dixon. Okay, well, you know some of these. We're hiring for a lawyer in our office. At any rate, the Salazar question is one that we're always focused on. I must say that Brenda, Donald is extraordinary, and so we have had significant meetings with Ms. Donald, trying to figure out a way to, frankly, take a huge step in compliance, a kind of big step that might lead to a resolution and some, relaxation of the pressure that the judge is placing on the District of Columbia. I think it's going to require us to, to be bold and actually put some more money on the table. In order to get out of these cases, especially where the judge is invested in these cases, we have to do more than just meet the judge's expectations. We have to far exceed them. And so we're in the process of talking with Ms. Donald and perhaps bringing it back to the executive about how it is we might be bold and really impress the judge with what we're doing so that we can get out of under the judge's supervision. Thank you.
Any other questions from members? Thank you, Carl. Madam Mayor, I have one question for you. We all have this at our place.
Yes.
Does Vince or somebody want to just speak briefly to what that's about?
Well, why don't we just refer to this nice memo that we got in recognition of Earth Day, and Vince Morris is here. I take it as representing the general manager. And you want to say why we have this bag of soil?
Yes. So
Just step up to a microphone somewhere.
It's hard as hell.
Wow, this one's
So marking our one-year partnership, we're working with the Mayor's Department of Transportation for the tree plantings that DOT does. We also work very closely with Casey Trees, and we provide this biosolid at no cost also to community garden centers, and we're happy to work with any of you who have an interest in using this in anything that's happening in your ward or throughout the city. We're turning something that was biosolids is another polite word for poop. This is a waste product that we are now turning into a valuable resource. We are raising money, saving money for DC customers, and we are also turning it into a useful way for people to plant. So we're very excited about it, and we wanted to share it with all of you. And obviously we have a lot more if you're interested. And thank you, Mayor, for allowing me to.
Thank you, Vince. Thank you. I think that's all we have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
See you next month, if not sooner.